Welcome, everyone, and welcome, Michael Chooks, to
Thank
Vision
you.
and Sound.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. I really appreciate it. And thank all of you for joining in for the conversation that we're going to have tonight. Let me just say this. I'm working with all new technical automation. So please just give me a moment because I'm going to reverse my screen as I go around and talk about each one of the pieces. But before I start that, let me just give you a brief background of who I am and why I create. As you know, my name is Chooks, and Michael calls me Michael. That is my first name, but I don't use my first name artistically. First of all, because understanding who I am as an artist, I learned about the origin of my last name in 1984 while I was a very young, struggling artist. And I happened to be doing a show in San Jose, where I grew up at. And I had my art out there, and I noticed a Black man looking at my work. And he seemed to be searching for who the artist was. And then finally I heard him say, Chooks, who is Chooks? And so I walked over and I told him, I'm Chooks. And so the first thing he asked, he said he really liked my work, but he asked me, says, do you know the origin of your last name? And I told him briefly about my father being a Chooks and from Scott, Arkansas, growing up on a plantation and not knowing anything else about that aspect of his name other than what he taught me and my brothers. And I won't go into that. But what this Black man told me was Chooks is a Nigerian name. It's from the Uru tribe. It's a very common name in Nigeria. But here in America, it's a very uncommon name, at least for me. So when I found out the origins of my last name, Chooks, and that it was directed to the motherland, Nigeria, I started doing research on what and who the Chookses were. So I found out that obviously I no longer was tied down to my name being a slave owner's name. That was passed down through the generations of a lot of Black families. So our family was fortunate enough to still maintain the name we have from the motherland. And that gave me tremendous power as an artist, knowing that I wasn't tied down to that. Now that may seem insignificant to a lot of people, but for me, it was very significant because I've always been on the search for who I am, my identity, and what I'm about. And that's why this show is so important, because it's called Identity Theft, because so much of our identity has been stripped and taken away from us. So knowing that I am a Chooks and I have an indigenous last name is very important, and I hold that very dear to my heart. So I pay homage to all the other Chookses out there, and I've gotten in touch with a lot of them whose obvious last name is Chooks. So for me, that's why I use the last name Chooks. So with that, I'm going to go into the work that I've created, which my catalog, as you can see, titled Identity Theft. I also have a book that will soon be released titled Identity Theft as well, Creations from the Social Conscious. I'm still working with my graphic artist on a few more details for the hard copy book. The catalog is the condensed version. The hard copy book is a complete edition of all the work up till the point that I started creating other work for Identity Theft. So it's much more comprehensive. They're both great books. One of them is available on Amazon. The other one, it's not out yet. But Identity Theft, for me, it started in 2016. And it started as a result of seeing the mass police violence directed towards young Black males. And obviously we know that's been going on for decades, but it seemed really strange that it started going on right at the end. It started being heightened at the end of President Obama's presidency. So every time I turn the TV on, I really don't watch the news. But every time I turned the TV on, there was always a senseless Black killing by police officers, those that are set to serve and protect us. And one particular day, my wife and I, we were driving down the street, and I looked up and I seen a group of young Black kids out on the side of the street, and they all had protest banners out there and protest signs. And I asked my wife, I said, babe, I said, what's going on here? And she immediately told me, that's Black Lives Matter. And it hit me like a ton of bricks to see the young Black people that were showing their love and support for the next generation and their generation that is being systematically targeted by those who are sent to serve and protect us. So I asked myself that same night when I got home with my wife, what are you going to do as an artist? Now, my art has always been geared towards adversities, and I won't say struggles, but climbing up and showing Black people in a positive frame of mind, a positive manner. I've always focused on that, but it certainly has been heightened as a result of seeing these killings, and I say senseless killings. So I began that night to start having these dreams. And as I had these dreams, the next morning, I woke up and I started creating all of this work. Now, there's more than 50 pieces in identity theft that I've been creating since 2016 up until right now, because I'm still creating work that is added to this collection. Because it means so much to me to express myself as an artist, to let the world know the passion I have for the Black people and the struggles that we're constantly being taken through. And as a Black artist, it is my duty to create the power that history has denied us for centuries. So with the work in identity theft, I decided to focus in on my aspect of how history has denied us of the truth of who we really are. It has also denied countless peoples, not just Black people, people of all colors, to look at Black people in some of the most negative ways that you can imagine. And we have to ask ourselves, why has this happened? And what can we do as artists to put a stop to this, to inform, to show that the negative portrayal that we are having in the media and in books and all other aspects of journalistic and social and whatever type of views that they have are not true. They're only a fragmented section of those negative portrayals that the vast majority of us are being tied down to because of the negative portrayal of just a few of us. So as an artist, I'm tackling those issues that are near and dear to my heart. Now, we're doing this during Black History Month. And, I get a lot of negativity from a lot of Black people, believe it or not, saying, why are you doing something during the month that is the shortest month of the year that supposedly someone gave us? Well, let me give you a little lesson about Black History Month. Yes, February, we all know, is the shortest month of the year, but that should never denote your history. you should celebrate your history throughout your entire life. No year should be dedicated to your history. But in the circumstances of Black History Month, Black History Month was started as a result to celebrate Frederick Douglass, the great Black emancipator and abolitionist, whose birthday was in February. Now, he didn't know exactly when his birthday was. Frederick Douglass didn't even know his last name. He took that last name as a result of reading a particular book, I believe, and he liked with the book the person Douglass. He liked the person Douglass, who that represented. So therefore, he took that last name. Now, here's a man that did not know his identity at that time as well, but he learned to read and write. And another footnote on Frederick Douglass. We have what people think is our first Black vice president. Well, let me give you a little history lesson. Kamala Harris is not our first elected vice president. Frederick Douglass was our first elected, well, he wasn't elected, but he was our first nominated Black vice president, a great friend of Abraham Lincoln. So that's just a part of your history. And I think it's something that we should look up. So when we stop, so we'll stop knocking the month of February being the shortest month of the year that someone just threw out to us and we just had to accept it, because we don't have to accept anything anybody gives us. We need to start taking what is ours, taking it back and reteaching what we learned and giving that back to the next generation so they'll take pride in who they are as well. So that's just my little brief history on Black History Month, and how it arrived. Now you can look that information up for yourself, and I suggest that you do. Don't just take Twitter's word for it. Look it up. Do some research. That's our problem. We take one or two suggestions or notions from one person or another, and we take that as fact. And with all this great technology we have out here, you're doing yourself and you're doing the technology an injustice by not looking up the true facts. And even doing that can be tricky. But hey, my wife is a librarian, so she fills me in with a lot of information that I can't Google. So if you can't Google it, go to the library. I strongly suggest you go to the library. So with that, I think we'll get started with the work in identity theft. So bear with me, because my computer skills are not that great, so I'm gonna switch my screen around. You probably won't see me, but you'll hear me. And I'm gonna start speaking about the work that I have. Actually, I will not take blame or credit for this. My wife, who without my wife, this artist just doesn't create. So when you see what you see here, this is my wife's vision. My wife is incredible. She's the one that takes care of all this and takes care of me. So what you're seeing is my work, but you're seeing my wife's vision as far as putting all this together. So we converted our living room into a gallery. So here we go. All right, and all right, just give me a minute here. I'm still trying to figure this out. All right, can you see the back of the screen now? Can you see the pieces now? Can you see them cut? All right, great. Great. Okay, so we are going to, let me see if I can get this larger for me. I could do this yesterday, but today I can't do it. And that's always the case. Well, either way. Well, okay, we're going to go to this particular piece right here. This particular piece is titled, Adam and Eve. And I think that's only fitting that I start with Adam and Eve. Now, biblically, for me as a Black male, every time that I see an image of Adam and Eve, it's never of a Black male, nor is it of a Black female. I have never going to any church, doesn't matter the denomination or the color of the church. I have never seen a depiction of Adam and Eve as a Black male or female. And what I'm questioning is if the beginning of life started in Ethiopia, which also some claim the Garden of Eden was also in Ethiopia. And this life started 3-4 million years ago. These are the first human bones in and on the continent of Africa. You didn't have any other colors at that time. You had one color, that was Black people. How can we then go from the continent of Africa with Adam and Eve to them being white or European now? So I'm questioning that with this particular piece. So here you see a photograph, a picture of Adam on one side. And you see Eve on the other side. So that's Adam and Eve. This particular piece here, let me try and get it down here. I can get this thing to work right. I don't know why. Let me see. Okay. Please bear with me. And like I said, I had this thing yesterday. I had it working right yesterday. Well, okay, we'll do this. This particular piece right here. This piece is titled Africans Only. These are Benin pieces, the king and queen of Benin. These are my people. These are Nigerians. This is what the king and queen look like centuries ago. But for me, I decided to put mirrors in their faces because we are all Africans. Regardless of whether you want to take that information or not, the history books will never say that. They will say that life started on the continent of Africa. And they'll tell you a few brief things about that. But when you look at the image of man coming out of Africa, he always ends up being white or European. He never ends up being a Black man. So for me, I'm questioning that with this work right here. And I'm paying homage to my understanding of who I am and who my people are and where we all come from, because we all come from the continent of Africa. No matter, I don't care if you want to deny it, you can't. Science has proved where we all come from. We migrated throughout the rest of the world and became who we are. So in this particular piece, once again, I am looking at the king and queen and these Benin pieces. So I'm giving you mirrors of yourself. So each time you walk up and you look at these particular pieces, you will see yourself as an African, and you will see yourself as royalty and beauty. Something that, once again, our society and the media does not want to portray us in. So I'm decided that I'm going to create these pieces and portray us that way. So Africans only. I'll go to the next piece. why this thing isn't working, doing what I want it to do. Let me see. Okay. Okay, well, enough with that. Modern technology, it works when you least expect it to work. When you don't want it to work, it just doesn't work. Anyways, this is a new piece. This piece is titled "The Protector of the Next Generation." Now, this particular piece right here, when I first started to show this work, I got a ton of comments, and everyone said, that looks great. You know, I love to see the mother holding the child, caressing the child. I mean, that's just such a warm and comforting piece. I mean, it's just so beautiful to see mother and child. I kept seeing mother and child, mother and child, mother and child. I mean, over and over and over again. So finally, I had to write almost like a disclaimer and say, actually, that is not mother and child. That is father and child. This is another part of identity theft, something else that the Black male has been stripped away from. We as fathers do not desert our children. We have not given up on our next generation of our children. We do show love to our children. We do and are truly concerned about the next generation of our children. And as you can see in that child's face, I'll get a real close up of the child's face. That child is in no way threatened. Those hands are older, wiser, with the veins. There's strength and wisdom in his hands. And he's passing that information on to his child, to the next generation. Something that is rarely seen by Black males. My father, who is still married to my mother, loved me like that and still loves me like that. He never deserted me. But the media, every time you see a Black person on television, it's usually with the mother, and the father is either subservient or he's nowhere in the picture whatsoever. I am a single father who raised my daughter. I love my daughter the way that this Black male loves his child. This is also a representation of me, something that that society has tried to strip away from us for centuries. And I refuse to buy into that. So when I say protector of the next generation, that's our job as males, is to protect, love, give that love, pass that love on to the next generation. So that's what this piece is about, protector of the next generation. So I'll move on. Okay. This painting that you're seeing here, it is titled "A Message of Hope." With all the negativities that are going on here and the brutality, once again, that has been focused on us as a Black civilization, I had this dream while creating this body of work. And right as I fell asleep during this dream, this image came to me. And I had prepared these canvases that my wife, she bought me all this canvas and wood material. So I made some canvases a few days before I did this painting. And I had no idea what I was going to make on this painting. So they were these beautiful blank canvas. And so the next morning, right as I drifted off to sleep, this image came to me. And so the next morning, without hesitation, in one day, I painted this painting. And it's titled "A Message of Hope," because I will never in my life give up on who I am and what I'm about and the love I have for myself and the love I have for my people. And so therefore we must have a message of hope. And that's what this painting represents, a message of hope. My next piece. This is titled Statute of Limitations. Now we've all seen the beautiful Statue of Limitation. Every time you go to New York and look out at Ellis Island, you see this magnificent statue. But do you know the true history behind this statue? The artist that created this statue, I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to go into all that right there. I'm going to let you look it up and find out for yourself. I'll tell you this, that he was a staunch abolitionist. He was an incredible artist. You can find all the information you want to about he and what he created. But when it comes to really telling the truth about the origins of the Statue of Liberty, it's very hard because there have been documentaries on what the Statue of Liberty truly represents. And none of them have actually really broken it down and told the entire truth. Your history is something that you're going to have to really, you just can't take the first or second word for it. You have to research it yourself. So on my research, finding out that America did not want a depiction of a Black woman, which the first Statue of Liberty was supposedly supposed to be. They claim that the artist who created the piece was created the piece to represent the plight of our freedom as Black people. And he represented that by creating a Black, beautiful woman. Well, America told him straight off that they did not want that statue, and they could not have the statue of a Black woman representing America, that they had gotten past slavery. This is the lie that they told them. So I renamed my piece Statue of Limitations. Let me tell you people, let me tell you Black people out there, it is not too late. It is not too late to find out who you are, find out the truth and the power that you possess. It is not too late. When I say statute of limitations, if you do not find out, the statute of limitations may run out on you. So don't let that happen. Don't let the statute of limitations run out on you. Find out who you are, what you're about. Find out your history and pass it along to the next generation. That's what I'm doing, and that's what this piece is about. Okay, I'll go to my next piece. This piece here, I actually did this piece 10 years ago. My wife and I went to Italy, and I was just taken back by seeing the work of Michelangelo. I mean, I grew up, just loving his work. My mother called me Michelangelo before I even knew who Michelangelo was. But my mother, she knew that her son was going to become an artist. She knew it before I knew it. But my wife and I, we took off and we went to Italy. And my wife says, it was we were both celebrating a milestone birthday. So my wife says, I'm gonna take you somewhere. And I'm like, well, babe, we just got to Italy. I said, what do you know about Italy? She says, just don't worry about it. So we were in walking distance, and we wound up in the Uffizi. And there, when I walked in the door, I immediately saw, when I walked in the door, some, marble sculptures of Michelangelo. So I knew I was going to see his work. But then I looked to the right and I saw David. And it's the most magnificent sculpture I've ever seen. To this day, I wanted to run and just grab it and just hold on to it and squeeze it. Of course, I couldn't do that, but my wife says I was just in a trance, and I just stayed there for hours. She wound up leaving me. I just stood there and looked at it. I just did. But anyways, when I got back home, we saw all of these beautiful pieces, beautiful art. But one thing that we saw this beautiful clay. I saw more clay work than I've seen, and just beautifully done anywhere that I've been. So I went and I found this particular clay that I heard about in Italy, and I created this piece. And it was for a particular show. The piece is titled Elegance. And so when I created the piece, I was like, wow, this piece is somebody's gonna be very happy to take this piece home. It's gonna sell very quickly. And so I saw some people looking at it, and I was surprised it didn't sell. So I left the piece in the gallery that represents me, and it sat in that gallery for 6 years because I had kind of just forgot about it. And so when I came back to the gallery, they had put the piece out again. And I saw this woman who was looking at it the first time 6 years ago, and she was back again, and she was looking at the piece. And I finally walked over to her, and we were talking about the piece, and I remember how she was entranced and looking at it the last time. But then she asked me, she says, she was fidgeting around with her words and I guess she was trying to not offend me. She says, why did you name the piece Elegance? And I'm like, well, I mean, it's an elegant piece, you know. I mean, I didn't go into detail, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, why is she asking me that question? And then it dawned on me. The piece is white. So in her mind, she believed that me being a Black person, that how could I name a white sculpture Elegance? She thought it was of a white person, which to me did not make any difference one way or another. But to me, she's a Black person. But I said, I just shook my head. Now I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. Okay, so the mentality out there is a little different than it is here in California. But either way, what I told the woman was, the reason I named the piece Elegance had nothing to do with the color of the piece. It had more to do with the elegance of the clay. And when I told her that, she put her head down in shame. She just shook her head in shame. I could just tell she was just ashamed of herself, the way she thought. And that is one of our main problems. We look at color, we don't look at content. We look at the negativity. We look at the things that we've been told about other people and other things. And we don't look at who a person or what a person really is. We don't look at the beauty that they possess. That's all I was looking at when I created this piece, was just the beauty of the clay. It had nothing to do with color. Nothing. People, stop. Color is just a color. Why are we tearing it down? I can't change my color. I will not. You can't change your color. But that does not mean we cannot get along. We cannot think for one another and love one another, that we have to stop letting other people think for us. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to go to this piece right here. When you're a child, they give you some clay, they lay it out, roll it out for you on a table, and most people stick your hands in it. They fire it, put your name on it, send it home. Here your hands are, embedded in the clay when you were 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, mostly when you're a child. Well, I did this piece right after I graduated with my undergrad degree in 1997. As soon as I graduated, I went straight back to the studio I was at, and I started working. And this is one of the pieces that I created. And it's called Child's Play, AKA booked and printed. I've taken it into the identity theft. So when you read about this in the identity theft catalog or book, it says, when I grow up, I want to be an artist. Is that a crime? Now I paused because I want you to think about it. Is it a crime to be an artist? Is it a crime to express yourself? No, it isn't. But I've always had stumbling blocks as a young Black artist creating, always. I mean, there was always someone in there trying to stop me from doing what I was doing. It's almost like they knew the talent I had, and they wanted to do everything they could do to stop me from doing what I do. And I hated that. I had one great teacher. That was my high school teacher, Mr. Mike Shannon, who is a man who is white. Well, he passed away, but he's the greatest teacher I ever had. He gave me the love I have for clay, so I'm paying homage to him. But these are my hands, once again, that they're sculpted. You know, there's no mold. There's not a mold made of these hands. I didn't mold my hands. I just got clay and I sculpted them because I am still a child. Every time I pick up clay, I'm a child. And I want to show that childness in the work, but I also want to show that the sophistication and the understanding I have of sculpture and of clay. So instead of putting my hands in the clay, I created and put my hands on there, but I also brought it to identity theft by saying booked and printed, because this is the same posture that you have when you commit a crime and they print you. I'm going to move on to the next piece. There are actually two pieces in here, but I'm going to focus on this one. I may not get to them all. This piece right here, these are my college books. This piece is titled The Book of Knowledge, ? These are all the books I was required to read while in undergrad. And most of the books were written about Black people. And as I would read through these books, I would get completely frustrated as to the nonsense that was written about us. This was so off kilter. What was written about us in these books had no depiction of the true Black person, at least none that I knew of. And for whatever reason, I graduated college. I got my undergrad in 1997. But I kept these books, and I don't know why, but I guess I do, because now they're all a part of this piece right here. So this is not me. This is not, this picture of the young man in here is not me, but in a way it is. There's the pen I used while I was an undergrad, actually. That was the pen I wrote with all my writings. But as I looked at these books and I started working on identity theft, and I actually did this before I did identity theft, I said, these books, they don't depict me. So I started looking at who wrote them. And as I looked at the publishing and the authors of the books, not one of these books was written by a Black person. They were all written on the European or white perspective of what they thought being Black was all about. And this is our course curriculum in college. So you can imagine what is written about our history prior to college, in grade school. It's atrocious. I mean, in Texas, there was a big ruckus about the history books for elementary school that stated that the Africans that were enslaved worked hand in hand with their slave owners, that there was no conflict, like they got paid a salary wage and retirement. They got nothing. They were promised 40 acres and a mule. They got nothing. They got sent back into slavery. But these books don't talk about that. They tell you one depiction of who we are, and we're supposed to just believe that. You must go further. You must. This is what's happening to us. They're writing the truth that is not the truth. Find out the truth about who you are and what you're about. And find and research who's writing that truth as well. It'll make it a lot easier for you to understand what's really going on. Okay, going to the next piece. I'm going to focus in on this piece right here. This is also new to the identity theft collection. This piece, excuse my hand, is titled Blackmail. And you may say, blackmail. Why did I name it blackmail? Well, obviously, it's an image of a black man, a beautiful black man. Once again, society has done us an injustice, and they try to portray us in so many different ways, so many different colors, so many mentalities, so many different ways. We don't know who or what we are. So I decided, instead of just making this piece black, I'm going to make it pink. So in saying that the piece is pink, I'm saying it doesn't matter what color or how you portray us. We are still strong and we are still beautiful. And there's nothing unbeautiful about who we are, no matter what you say about us. Nothing. I don't believe what other people tell me about myself, even if they say something positive. The fact is, I believe in myself, and that's where it starts. You have to be grounded in your own self before you can accept what others have to say or choose not to accept what they have to say. It's very important that you do that. So no matter how they portray you or what they say about you, doesn't mean you're not beautiful. Doesn't mean that. So believe in yourself because you are beautiful. Okay, next piece. This piece right here, titled, let me see if I can get a better view of it so you can see it. The female with the target on her belly, titled Target Practice. Before you even come out of the womb, you're already a target. You haven't even come out the womb yet. You are inside of your mother's body and you are a target. Her body's dark, representing Black people, but her face is white because it affects not only Black people, it affects everyone. So it doesn't really matter what color you are. If you're Black, you're going to have to defend your Blackness. I hate to say that. If you're white, then you're going to have to ask yourself, who are these Black people? What are they? Are they a threat to me? You're going to have to ask yourself that. And that's what this piece is about. You haven't come out of the womb yet, and you're already being targeted. You don't even know who you are. Society is already targeting you. We must put a stop to that. We must stop it. My next piece here. This piece is titled Misguided Prayers, AKA, Dear Lord, please let me win the lottery. Now here you see a Black, or well, a male and a female with Black hands representing us, and they're praying is what it looks like. But you have to ask yourself, what are they praying for? Is the Black male praying for some gold jewelry, you know, a fancy new car, you know, I mean, some new suit, you know, I mean, some rims for his Cadillac so he can impress some female who is only looking for the most material of material things, has no idea who she is and what she's about, will sell her precious body just to be with some guy that has all of the things that that don't mean nothing, that are irrelevant. So when you look and you see that they're praying, they're not really praying. They're actually arm wrestling, because the woman has one arm on her right side on the other side of the sculpture, and the male has an arm on his left-hand side. And so there's a struggle between the two of them as to what are they going to get? What are they praying for? They haven't figured out how to work together, because society has done such a terrible job of having them inspired to things that they should not inspire for, that have no substance. So when I say misguided prayers, they're praying for the lottery. Are you praying for the lottery? Are your prayers misguided? What are you praying for? What's important to you? That's what this piece asks. I'll go to these pieces here. When we were ripped from our continent, our names were changed. We had no choice. We couldn't bring our indigenous names with us. We couldn't even speak our language. If we tried to speak our language or call ourselves by other names, we were beaten severely. Like animals. We were herded away like animals, given another name, another identity. So these two refused to take on their names. So for them, I just call them brother and sister. And that's all they are, because they refuse to take on the names that were given to them. And so until they find their true indigenous names, they will remain as brother and sister. This piece here. Unarmed. This is one of the first pieces I did for identity theft. One of the very first pieces. This is an image of a young black strapping male. You can see the arms crossed, defiant, but with no weapons in his hands, nothing but just he and himself in his blackness. Under his arms are 2 drips of blood. You may ask why the arms are blue with stars in them. Well, that represents the Confederate flag, the racist, bigoted attitude that many, and I'm not letting you off the hook, police officers, many of you have when you see us. That represents the attitude you have for us. And we've seen that attitude recently at the White House. The face on the piece is of a young black male, but half of his face is cut off, because you don't see us as a whole. You only see a portion of us. And when we stand and speak for ourselves, you can't deal with it. So your rights as a police officer give you the right to shoot us. And that's what the drips of blood stand for. How am I doing on time, Mr. Cunningham? Can you hear me? Oh, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you,
Okay.
Chooks. It's about 7:56 Arizona time, so we have until 8:30.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, let me go through a few more pieces, and then we'll end this. Okay, this particular piece is titled "Prisoner of Our Own Devices." Now, when I first moved to Los Angeles some 20 years ago, I was given the honor of becoming the artist resident in Leimert Park, which is predominantly Black now, but before it was Black, a Black predominant area, it was mostly Jewish. And as I would travel about a mile from where I was living to Leimert Park, I noticed that all these houses here, they just beautiful houses. I mean, they were absolutely beautiful, but they all had bars on them. Now, I grew up in Northern California. I didn't see bars on houses out there. But here, I mean, it's just bars everywhere. And so I started asking myself, what's the deal with these bars? Well, if you understand the history of Leimert Park, you'll find out that, once again, it's predominantly Jewish. So when Black people started moving in the neighborhood, the first thing that people, the Jewish people did was, because of their ignorance and not understanding who we are, they started putting bars on their houses. And that became the norm for Los Angeles now, to bar up your house. Nobody was really robbing you, but, you know, I mean, more people probably died because they couldn't get out of their house than died because someone was trying to get in their house. So these bars represented nothing. All you were doing was turning your beautiful house into a prison. So when I moved here, where I'm living now, my neighbors, who are Jewish, the first thing they did, because there were bars on their house, they cut those bars off. That's the first thing they did. And when they cut them off, I got to know my neighbors, and I love my neighbors. They're great neighbors. And so they cut them off. And so I was very happy, but I really didn't say anything because it's their house. But one of the neighbors asked me, she says, "Hey, Chooks, do you want these bars?" And I said, "No, not really. What do I want to do for them?" She said, "Well, you may be able to use them as an art project." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I didn't think about it, but there's an image in this piece. There's two eyes, there's a face, there's a male looking in here. It's kind of hard to see on this, but actually, we've become prisoner of our own devices. And these bars are hideous. They're hideous. And they're not protecting us from nothing. They're just a fear that somebody put in our minds, telling us that we think we need these bars. But when I started painting this painting here, I said, no, this painting is just not saying anything to me. And so immediately my mind went to the bars. So I went over and I knocked on the door and I asked my neighbor, I said, "Do you still have those bars?" Now she looked at me kind of funny. I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "I'm going to use them." So she gave me the bars. And do you know, when I put these bars on this painting, they fit exactly. I didn't have to alter one thing. It's almost like the two were meant to be with each other. It was just incredible. I mean, so we no longer have to be the prisoner of our own devices. We need to free ourselves from that. We need to free ourselves from this false sense of security. When you bar yourself, I don't care how beautiful your house is, you're just living in a beautiful prison. And that does not solve anything, because you have to leave that house at one time. You're going to have to leave. And then what do? You're going to have to start dealing with people. Prisoner of our own devices.
Chooks, I believe.
Yep, go ahead.
I believe Michael wanted to go ahead and get some questions going. So if you're ready to take any questions, we can go ahead and start on that.
Sure, we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to end the stream on YouTube. Thank you so much for everyone who tuned in on YouTube. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. And then for those who are on Zoom, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and take this time to ask any questions you may have.